The 2023 NFL season ends on Sunday, which means we will have seen one full season with the 2023 NFL draft class. The first round was very intriguing to say the least, so why don't I grade all 31 picks? I'm Chase Keller, and welcome to grading all 31 first round picks from the 2023 NFL draft. Enjoy. Let's start with the first overall and work our way down. Bryce Young had himself a not so great start to his career. He gets a C+ and not like a D for two reasons. First off, rookie quarterbacks don't always have the best start. Stroud looked fantastic and had one of the best rookie seasons a quarterback has ever had. Lawrence, Burrow, even Peyton Manning all had sluggish starts to their career. And second off, the Panthers had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, and with a better surrounding core, Young would have performed better. Since he was a rookie placed in a bad situation, he gets a C+. Then a very obvious A+ as we get to CJ Stroud at pick 2. Houston gets their clear franchise answer and they get it immediately in year 1. Stroud looked like an MVP caliber player at some points, and he actually did receive some MVP buzz. The only issue I had with him as a prospect is that he folded under pressure. And somehow, some way, he found a way to get over that hump and become one of the better poised quarterbacks in the NFL, A+. And then Houston jumped up and got the potential Defensive Rookie of the Year with Will Anderson Jr. He went off in his rookie season, just as I expected, and as my number 1 player in the 2023 draft, I obviously gave him an A+. I don't think he worked up to that in his first year as his season was filled with ups and downs, but he still played fantastic. I give Anderson an A because he was great, but with him not being my Defensive Rookie of the Year and Houston trading a bunch to get him, it's not quite an A+. Now, Indianapolis quarterback Anthony Richardson receives a to be determined because there isn't much to say. He flashed a lot before his injury, but obviously we can't say he would have kept it up. Just because of his injury, I'm not even giving him a grade yet. I personally think that I only got 4 grades spot on in the first round, and this is one of them. While Witherspoon wasn't my number 1 cornerback in this draft class, this was still a great positional need and at the time was a great lineup next to Reek Woolen. Besides, my cornerback 1 in Christian Gonzalez ended up getting hurt. Witherspoon had a fantastic season, and while I don't think he's Defensive Rookie of the Year, this is a clear A grade and you can't tell me different. Now, Paris Johnson Jr. to the Arizona Cardinals was a pick that I was initially torn on and came to somewhat like in the end. Johnson wasn't high on my board, I didn't think offensive tackle was their biggest need, and they even traded up to get him, and it somehow ended up worse than I even imagined. Sure, I upped his grade to a B after a day of processing, but allowing 42 pressures at right tackle and suffering the 5th most penalties in the entire league won't help your case. C+. Already becoming one of the biggest busts from this class is Vegas edge Tyree Wilson. Now, I would be ashamed of giving this pick an A originally, but I know a lot of people like this pick, so I'm not going to fret. He never started a game for Vegas, yet his snaps still dwindled down as the season went on. He couldn't defend both the pass and the run efficiently, and as a result, Wilson gets a D grade, which is the worst grade I gave out for this video. At pick 8, the Falcons surprisingly took Bijan Robinson, the highest running back selected since Saquon Barkley. It was a consensus that Robinson was a generational talent at running back, but him going 8th overall, especially to a team who just had a running back rush for 1,000 yards, was a bit controversial. The pick played out about as I expected, but towards the end of the year, Bijan was actually starting to shine and getting all of the touches he deserved. I can't wait to see him in full force, but for now, he gets a B. Okay, come on now. We all knew teams were going to regret letting Jalen Carter slide to pick 9, and look what happened. Carter is my Defensive Rookie of the Year after putting up a fantastic season and working his way out of the rotational side of things and towards full-blown anchor on the D-line. In a line that's stacked, that's impressive. He was impactful in both the pass and the run, and as a result, he's my second and final A+ grade from this draft. The Chicago Bears traded down instead of taking Jalen Carter, and they went with a right tackle. Right out the gate, I wasn't a huge fan of this idea, and I'm still not a great fan. First off, they passed up on Jalen Carter. But after that, I wouldn't particularly say that Wright had a bad year. He was up to par as a run blocker, and while he struggled more than Paris Johnson in the pass game, just having that extra step up is a positive. But Wright gets the same grade as Johnson because of the circumstances. Then another offensive tackle went off the board in Peter Skoronski. He actually made the switch over to guard to start his career, and I loved the pick given how bad the Titans' offensive line was, and actually still is. I don't know why every first round O-lineman did struggle this season, but at least Skoronski was somewhat okay as a first year guard, B-. I think Jahmyr Gibbs shocked everyone this season. The Lions underutilized him for a while, but once he got going they were doing it perfectly. Fantastic 1-2 punch with Montgomery, and somehow he was faster than I even scouted him at. Him being able to be both a rushing and a receiving threat made the Lions super deadly when he was on the field. He's not a 3-down back, but he still played elite this season. For that reason, I gotta give him an A-, even though you shouldn't take a running back this early. My final dead-on grade to me. Van Ness was not an appealing pick, especially given the Packers running a 3-4 defense. He fits more as a D lineman, whether that be D end or even D tackle, and I think that showed year one as he played outside linebacker. He was a solid player at times, but he never had a breakout game that made me want to think differently than a C+. Roderick Jones. I gave this pick an A+ originally because he was my number one offensive tackle in the class and the Steelers were needy at the position. He showed some great flashes as a pass blocker to start the year, then once he got the starting position, he actually struggled a lot. He allowed 34 pressures and 5 sacks while only starting 12 games. His good run blocking saves him a bit, but he still disappointed me and he gets a C+ as a result. I'm not sure what to do about Will McDonald. On one hand, he only played 183 snaps all season, and a first-round pick should not get that little of an opportunity. I mean, Christian Gonzalez played more snaps in the 4 games he was healthy. But on the other hand, he's playing with the best defensive line in the country, and when he played, he was actually pretty impressive. I hated the pick because he wasn't my favorite player, and he was joining that stacked defensive line. But I can't regrade him until he gets more snaps or proves that he's not worthy of getting more. This grade is to be determined. Then the Commanders took Emmanuel Forbes over Christian Gonzalez. Believe it or not, I actually really liked Forbes as an NFL prospect, but he wasn't my number one corner like Gonzalez was. Forbes disappointed heavily this year, and while he had 9 pass breakups, it was mainly because he allowed so much to happen. As a result, I won't give him a D grade, but C- fits well. Now it's Gonzalez, but yeah, he got hurt. Easy as to be determined of my life, but this might stick to an A+ like I had before if he continues to play at the level he was playing at. This pick grew on me after a while since Campbell was my number 2 linebacker. I just thought the Lions pulled the trigger a little too early, but it did work out and Campbell was a solid starter for Detroit all season. Hopefully he can keep developing because I enjoyed what I saw in year 1. A B. Kalijah Kancey was another player who I loved out of college, and in return, the Bucs picked him and got an A grade for it. Now I regret it, just like I do half of these grades. Kancey did show that being undersized might actually be an issue, and he showed it by being an absolute liability in run defense. Pass rush was fine, and he did win a Defensive Rookie of the Month award for that at one point, but his run defense was genuinely awful, C-. The first wide receiver went off at pick 20, and I thought the pick was very intriguing given it was Seattle making it. I loved the idea and gave it an A, and while I wouldn't go that high when regrading it, JSN did work out well in year 1. Being the wide receiver 3 in that offense didn't impact him too much. As a result, he just misses out on an A and gets a B+. Then came Quentin Johnston. God, I hate some of these grades that I gave out. Johnston was my wide receiver 1 in the draft, so naturally the Chargers got an A the same way that the Seahawks got an A. A good wideout option who can eventually replace one of the two when they walk away. But Johnston showed why some scouts hated him. His routes were mediocre, and he made a couple crucial drops. So he gets a D+, and I hate myself for it. Wide receiver number 3 was Zay Flowers, and he ultimately became the best one. I wasn't a huge fan of this pick, and I don't even remember why. I thought he was a good prospect and was ranked as my wide receiver 3, and he comes out, balls out, and quickly becomes the Ravens wide receiver 1. I'm expecting a huge jump in 2024, but for the moment, I'm giving this pick an A-. And finally, Jordan Addison was the final wideout taken off the board, and he got an A-. I thought grabbing a wide receiver 2 was crucial for this Minnesota team, and they got it. I wasn't a massive fan of Addison, but I still loved the fit in Minnesota. With him playing slightly worse than Flowers, he gets a B+ grade. Deonte Banks was a great pick in my eyes when New York took him, and he looked like a great pick to start the year. Then he had a rough game against Vegas. Then he had a rough game against Dallas. And some mediocrity to end the season drove me away from even liking his rookie year. C+. I wasn't sure how to think of the Dalton Kincaid pick when it first happened. I was confused on why the Bills took another tight end, but the player they took was easily the best fit for Buffalo. At the time, I just didn't like the positional need and value, but it's come to bite me back. I'm still not giving him an A grade, and I'm sticking in the B range just like I originally did. B+. Dallas went with the pick that I hated originally, and I hate it even more now. Mozzie Smith was nothing special as a prospect in my eyes, and he went to a team that didn't really need him. And somehow he was very bad in run defense, which is the only thing I actually liked about him as a prospect. So for that reason, on top of playing only 300 snaps, he's a D+ player. Jacksonville took Anton Harrison at pick 27, and I'm about just on terms with it like I was before. It's a fine pick for a huge need for the team, and while Harrison had a really bad year as a run blocker, he grew into a trusty right tackle in the pass. Good overall selection, and it turns into a B- grade. I couldn't have been the only one to love this Myles Murphy pick at 28. He was super high on my big board and only wasn't an A+ because the Bengals didn't particularly need an edge rusher. Instead of helping my case, he had an okay year and only played 300 snaps on top of that. I wasn't expecting more snaps, but I was expecting more production. C+. New Orleans went to bulk up their defensive line in this draft, and both picks didn't have great first years. Breesy showed a lot of promise as a pass rusher, but very minimal promise as a run defender, and as a result, he missed out on getting a B grade. Another guy whose play did not reflect the grade I gave them. C+. Let's do it again, shall we? Nolan Smith played 200 snaps, which probably doesn't help his case, but man, the pass rush productivity was not it. He did flash in several games though, and I have to give him his credit for that. By no means was Smith anything special in 2023, but he did what a lot of linemen, both offensive and defensive, couldn't do, and that's flash significant promise. I give Smith a B. And finally, to end the first round, the Super Bowl champs took another defensive lineman who did not have a great start to his career. Onyedika Uzomah wasn't my favorite pick from the get-go, and it's not because I'm a Broncos fan. I actually loved the Rashee Rice pick right away. The Onyedika Uzomah played 218 snaps, missed 14.3% of his tackles, and only produced 11 pressures. And when he started week 18, he was one of the worst defenders on the field. Not great, C-. Alright, well that's all I have to say about regrading the 2023 draft. Which grades did I get right? Which grades were ridiculous to you? Let me know in the comments section below. Wait, are you not subscribed yet? Well, do it now. I release content like this all the time and would really appreciate your support. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and I will see you all next time.